On February 9th, 1999, early in the morning, some people burst into my apartment, where I lived with my wife and child, threw me onto the floor, handcuffed me, and dragged me into a car. In the car, I found out they were law enforcement officers. They took me to a forest in the Concha Zaspa area, near the city Kiev, stripped me naked, and it was winter at the time, and began demanding me to confess to the murder. They handed me a shovel and told me to dig a hole for myself. One of the law enforcement officers took out a pistol and started shooting in my direction, threatening me that they would kill me if I didn't confess to the murder. Afterwards, they tied me to a tree and started beating me. I don't remember how long it lasted, but when we arrived at the regional department, it was already getting dark. I was brought to a kindergarten which was next to the regional department where law enforcement officers and agencies rented a room for torture. This was later established during trial. They hung me on an iron bar and demanded me to confess to the murder while I was hanging. I don't remember how long I was hanging. They took off my shoes and beat my feet and heels with nunchucks for the same purpose. Then, they dragged me to the regional police department because I couldn't move. They tried to hand me over to the officer on duty in the regional police department, but he denied receiving me because he was afraid that I wouldn't live till morning. An ambulance was called for me and the doctor suggested hospitalization, but the law enforcement officer decided to leave me there. They kept me in the regional department for about 2 weeks, as the temporary detention facility did not accept me because of the drubbing, and this fact is documented. In order to formalize my legal detention, an administrative case was drawn against me, and that the law enforcement officers allegedly detained me when I was drunk and expressed myself with obscene words near a grocery store. I was given 10 days of administrative arrest. During the investigation, I filled a statement twice, that I was tortured and that my personal belongings were stolen, but they were not taken into account. In court, these statements were also ignored. At the moment, these statements are in the criminal case. After the trial, at the request of the lawyers, we conducted a medical examination, which clearly indicated that there were signs of torture on my body. We immediately sent documents to initiate a criminal case against law enforcement officers, but we received a refusal. Because in our country, it's uncommon to initiate a criminal case against law enforcement officers. They are under the protection of the state. Before my arrest, my car and my relative's car, in addition to part of my apartment, were seized from me. Everything that was seized was supposed to go towards solving the claim, but as it turned out, the cars disappeared from the penalty area. One car, they said, was lost or disappeared, and no cent was paid for the claim. None of these law enforcement officers suffered the slightest punishment. And the fact that there is a statement from the victim to the prosecutor's office about blackmail and threats against her so that she would testify against me by the investigator speaks of the impunity of those who are supposed to defend laws and human rights. Till this day, all of this has been ignored, which is unjustifiable.